Part 6. Divine Tension. Chapter 1. The Weight of Their Gaze. Astrid could feel them, not in voice, not in vision, but in the strange silence that followed her now, like a second shadow. The gods were watching. When she walked the shattered bridges of Alfheim, the winds shifted with every step. When she knelt beside a fallen warrior, Valkyries slowed their wings. When she laughed, thunder rolled, not in answer, but in acknowledgement. The world had changed since she returned from Muspelheim with fire in her hands, not openly, not with song or crown, but quietly. The kind of change that made seers restless. Odin sat alone in the high seat of Hlidskjalf, the throne that saw all. The ravens had returned, but brought him no peace. He had seen what she did, how she raised a giant not with dark rites, but with divine breath, how she taught the young, guided the lost, burned a path through fate as if it were hers to forge. She wielded Himmensglöd as if it had always belonged to her, and yet she still laughed at feasts, still toasted the fallen, still shielded the weak. Was she the prophecy, or the storm that came after? Odin did not speak these thoughts aloud. He held them like kindling, waiting to see what caught flame. Freya felt it too. She saw the hush that followed Astrid into battle, the way the others, gods and spirits both, listened when she spoke, even if she hadn't meant to lead. Astrid was changing, not becoming a god, becoming something else. Freya had once raised her from the edge of death. Now, she wondered if that act had merely begun a fire she could no longer contain. And far beneath the world tree, in the half-light of the underworld, Hel stood before a mirror of still water. Astrid's reflection rippled there, distorted by time and distance. Hel did not speak. She reached out with one hand, pale, cracked, longing. Not to take, but to feel. Just once. "Let them watch," she whispered. "You burn for no one but yourself." Chapter 2. The Dream Beyond the Flame. That night, Astrid slept with her back to a dying fire and her hammer resting beside her. She had fought no battle that day. She had heard no cries for aid, yet her body felt heavy, as though the weight she carried had settled not in muscle or bone, but in her soul. And when she dreamed, it was not of war. She stood in a field of pale flowers, white as bone, soft as snowfall. They moved without wind, their petals trembling in silence. Above her, the sky stretched wide and starless. Not dark, just endless. The kind of sky that had never known the sun. To her right, a river flowed, black and slow, so still it could have been glass, and across it she saw Hel. The goddess stood beneath a leafless tree, one hand on its bark, the other resting at her side. Her robes curled like mist around her feet. Her face was, as it always was, half life, half death. Yet here, in the hush of dream, the skull half seemed softer. Not beautiful, not monstrous, just real. Astrid didn't move. Neither did Hel. For a long time, they simply stood, two figures at opposite ends of something vast and unspoken. Then Hel raised her hand, not commanding, just open. "Come." The voice did not echo. It didn't need to. Astrid stepped forward. The river did not part. There was no miracle. But her feet found stones beneath the surface, smooth and ancient, like they'd waited only for her. When she reached the far bank, Hel said nothing. She only turned, slowly, and began walking. Astrid followed, through the flowers, into a grove of stone pillars half buried in frost. They sat. No throne, no altar, just cold stone beneath them, and a silence not meant to be filled. After a time, Astrid asked, "Why call me here?" Hel's gaze never left the sky. "Because I missed you." Astrid blinked, not from surprise, but because she didn't know how else to respond. "You're not afraid of me," she said. "No. Even after Surtur." Hel tilted her head, the corner of her mouth, the living half, just barely curved. "Fire warms. Fire devours. You choose which." Astrid looked down at her hands. In the dream, they were bare. The scars still there, the calluses, the burns. "They're watching me." "Yes. You too." Hel finally turned to face her, the stars reflected in her dead eye. The living one held something older than envy, older than fear. Always. No warning, no prophecy. Just that word, wrapped in frost and memory. When Astrid awoke, the fire beside her had burned low, and the stars overhead were beginning to fade. She did not speak of the dream, but she felt it still, like a kiss pressed to the soul, cool and lingering. And somewhere far below, in the lands where no sun shone, Hel stood beneath her tree once more, waiting, not for death, but for her. Chapter 3. I Know Your Name. The battlefield was quiet now. Only the wind remained, curling through ash and broken shields. Fires still smoldered in the bones of trees, and snow fell, melting before it touched the ground, as if morning could not settle while death still lingered. Astrid stepped through the wreckage. Her boots left no sound. Her wings, folded tight against her back, glimmered faintly in the dim light. She walked not as a conqueror, but as a guide. Her hammer hung at her side, but it was not Himmensglöd she carried now. It was Kale. The warrior's body lay among the fallen, his chest caved, his arm shattered, but his grip still clenched around a broken sword. His eyes stared upward, wide and lifeless, yet not empty. She had seen this before, when the spirit was still tethered, when the soul had not let go, and already the air felt colder, a pull, to the wrong side. She knelt beside him and placed 2 fingers gently to his forehead. "You stood when none did." Her voice was barely a breath. "You held the line when it should have broken." The world dimmed. Frost licked at her armor. Hell's reach. Astrid's eyes flared, but not with fire, with light. She stood slowly and looked beyond the veil, into the gray realm where the spirits strayed before they found their way. Kale's soul was there, lost, alone, drawn toward the cold. She stepped forward, into that space between breaths, where the dead wandered and the living dared not go. He didn't see her at first. He stumbled, swordless, confused. His wounds were gone, but his heart still bled. "I failed," he muttered. "I broke." "You did not." Her voice rang through the mist. He turned, his eyes widened. Astrid, glowing, wings outspread, a golden memory in a realm of gray. "You stood when it mattered most," she said. "You carried your brothers when they fell. You shielded the young. You led when your commander fled. I died. You rose." She stepped closer, and the cold pulled harder. Hel was watching, but Astrid did not yield. "You are not forgotten," she whispered. "You are not alone." The wind screamed. A shadow pulled at Kale's feet. Astrid raised her voice, fierce and unshaken. "I know your name!" The mist trembled. The pull snapped. Kyle gasped, light blooming in his chest as the weight lifted. Above, the skies opened, golden and bright. The gates of Valhalla stood waiting, and Odin's voice thundered, echoing through soul and sky alike. "Kyle the Unyielding, I know your name." Astrid stood alone again on the field, but the snow finally settled, the fires faded, and one more warrior's soul had found his way home, not because the gods called him, but because she did. Chapter 4. A Quiet Offering. The path was unmarked, no runes, no trailstones, just a thin line in the snow where boots had once passed, faint, nearly swallowed by time, but Astrid followed it, drawn not by summons or orders, but by something quieter, a feeling, a pull. It led her deep into the fjordlands, where the wind carved the cliffs and the sun barely broke through the clouds. She walked without speaking, Himmelsglöd sheathed on her belt, her wings folded and still. The world here was quiet, not the silence of fear, but of reverence, of breath held in memory. She crested the final rise, and stopped. Below, nestled between two stone outcrops, stood a small shrine. No temple, no altar, just a ring of standing stones, ancient and weathered, their tops etched with names she didn't know. And offerings, dozens of them, spears, broken shields, braided hair bound in twine, amulets carved from bone, a small child's wooden horse, a song etched into bark, and on nearly every one, in careful, different hands. To Astrid. She approached slowly, her breath catching. No one was here, no guards, no priests. This shrine wasn't built by gods. It was built by the grateful, by those who had whispered her name in the dark and lived to see the dawn. She knelt beside a cracked helm, its crest marked with the seal of a long-dead clan. Tucked inside was a scrap of fur and a note. She carried him home. She sang his name. Astrid touched it gently. Her hands trembled, not from pain, but from something deeper. They remembered. Not because she asked them to, not because they were told to, because they wanted to. She sat in silence for a long while, not praying, not commanding, just listening. When the wind passed through the stones, it hummed, soft and low, almost like a lullaby. She didn't cry, but something in her chest shifted, as though the weight of all she had carried had changed shape. No lighter, just seen. When she rose, she left behind nothing but her breath on the cold air, and in her heart, a question she didn't yet know how to answer. What happens when a legend stops needing the gods to live? Chapter 5. Freya's Reflection. The halls of Sessrumnir echoed with song. Warriors toasted with golden mead. Stories were retold and reshaped by each voice, as they always were. Shields lined the walls, and the air shimmered with the warmth of firelight and fellowship. But Freya did not join the feast. She stood on the balcony above, alone, her gaze turned not inward toward the revelry, but outward, beyond the golden towers, toward the sky that no longer looked quite the same. It had taken her centuries to recognize the shape of power, but she knew what she was watching now. Not a rise, not a fall, a shift. "Strange to see you away from the hearth," a voice said behind her. Freya turned. Brynja approached, armored and calm, carrying 2 cups. She handed one over. They drank in silence for a moment, the kind shared only by immortals who had long since passed the need for small talk. Then Brynja said, "You've seen it too." Freya didn't answer immediately. She swirled the mead once in her cup. "I raised her from the edge of Hell's Gate," she said. "I thought I was saving her." "You were," Brynja replied, "but maybe not in the way you thought." Another silence. Then, "They follow her now," Brynja added. "Some don't even wait for your word. Or mine." Freya nodded. "They feel something when she walks among them. A story, a name, not divine, but familiar. Is that dangerous?" Freya took a slow sip. "Only if you believe power belongs only to the gods." She looked skyward again. She could feel Astrid's presence, far away, quiet, but radiating. And it wasn't just the Valkyries who felt it. Mortals, spirits, even the shadows that watched from Hell's realm, all drawn, not by decree, but by memory, by name. "Do you fear her?" Brynja asked at last. Freya turned, her expression unreadable. "No." A pause. Then she added, "But I wonder what she will become." Chapter 6. The Raven and the Flame. The Allfather did not speak often, but when he did, the wind listened. He stood beneath the vast branches of Yggdrasil, one hand resting on the bark, the other clasped loosely behind his back. His ravens, Hugin and Munin, circled above, their wings dark against a storm-gray sky. He did not move, did not need to. The well of Erd shimmered nearby, quiet for once. The Norns were gone. They did not linger when he came alone, and he was very much alone. A fire sparked low on the horizon, just beyond the mountains where Muspelheim once roared. Not smoke, not war. Her, Astrid. He had watched her from the start, watched her burn as a child, bleed as a warrior, rise as a flame no god lit, and now he could not see her fate. Not clearly, not anymore. He extended his hand. One raven, Munin, memory, descended and landed softly on his wrist. The bird tilted its head, spoke not in words, but in thought. They call her in temples now. Not as goddess, Odin replied, as guide. The raven blinked once. Is that worse? Odin did not answer. He turned slowly, facing a runestone carved with names long since faded, his own among them. He touched it once, lightly, like a father brushing the brow of a child who had outgrown him. There is power in stories, he murmured. More than steel, more than gods. A second raven joined. Hugin thought. It landed on his shoulder. Silent. Odin closed his eye. Listened. Wings. Voices. Cheers. Songs. Astrid's name echoed in too many halls. She was not being worshipped. She was being remembered. And in this world, remembrance did more than prayer. He opened his eye again. The wind changed. He spoke not to the ravens, not to the tree, but to the flame just beyond the reach of prophecy. What will you become when even fire forgets to burn? The ravens shrieked, thunder rolled, and Odin, wisest of gods, stood still. Not with fear, but with a thought he would not yet share. Chapter 7. The Quiet Before the Storm. She had flown farther than she ever had before. Beyond the northern lights, past the frost-shrouded peaks of Jotunheim, where the stars seemed to hold their breath. Astrid landed atop a cliff of black stone, wings folding behind her, the wind brushing her braid like an old friend. She said nothing. The air didn't ask her to. No souls needed saving. No songs needed singing. No gods were watching. Or, if they were, they stayed silent. She sat with her back to a jagged spire, Himmensglod resting across her knees. The hammer pulsed faintly, but for once, it did not hunger. Its fire, like hers, was still. The sky above was wide and moonless, the kind of night that didn't press down. It lifted. She didn't think of Odin, or Freya, or hell. She thought of her father's forge, of the lullaby her mother used to hum, of how hard it had been once, just to keep walking, and how far she had come. Not as a chosen one. Not as a goddess, just as Astrid. She touched the edge of her hammer. The golden spear she once carried, Gulskjoldur, was far away now, passed to hands she trusted. Yet she didn't feel its absence, only what remained, the fire, the weight, the name. She had become something the gods couldn't define, and for the first time, she didn't try to either. Astrid closed her eyes, not to sleep, just to feel the stars behind them. Let them wonder what she would become. She already knew who she was,